Ready? Hi everyone, I'm Sam Jacobs. I'm a current helper at Skiff, and I'm here with my grandmother, Helen Jacobs, who is also a helper at Skiff and a member of Skiff and the Bund in Poland and France, and was involved in Melbourne. But today we're going to talk about her time with the Bund and Skiff in Poland and go through some photos as well. So we'll start just from the beginning. When and where were you born?
I was born in Poland, in Kalisz, and starting from Kalisz, that's where where my mother and father were married in 1931.
Okay, and what were your parents' names?
My mother was called from home Genia Katz, and my father was Hersch Storch.
Can you tell us a little bit about your parents?
My mother was a teacher, and my father was working in a printing firm in Kalisz.
Okay, and your mother was a Yiddish teacher?
A Yiddish teacher. She finished the Yiddish learners seminar in Vilna.
Okay, and your parents were involved in the Bund. What positions did they hold in the Bund?
Well, my father was working, as I said, in a Polish printing firm, and in the 1920s there was a very bad anti-Semitism, and the Jewish people who worked in Polish firms lost their jobs. So he had to leave his job in which he worked for years and years, and they decided to leave Kalisz and come to the other part of Poland where my mother's family lived, in the Bund in Warsaw, knowing my father's special ways and different, I don't know how to call it. He used to organize things. He was a terrific orator, and he was organizing clubs with youth and theater groups. So they decided to send him off to Brest-Litovsk, because Brest-Litovsk had a terrible pogrom in the late 30s, and the mood in the party was very low, and they wanted someone to lift up the work there. So we arrived in Brest-Litovsk in the late 30s, and that's where my father was working as a secretary of the Bund organization. And my mother immediately found a job in the Jewish school in Bielsk, in Brest-Litovsk.
Okay, and if we look at the first slide there, you mentioned your father was involved in Yiddish theatre. What are your memories of, did you go to a lot of these shows or?
Well, I was too young actually to go to the shows, but they used to bring me to the dress rehearsal. So I wasn't behaving very well, because if I could see something on the stage there, that someone pushed my father, like there was a play I remember that was called The Miser, and there was a scene when my father was pushed to the ground. So I screamed and I said, "Don't you dare touch my father." So luckily enough, it wasn't a proper performance, but only rehearsals.
I think that photo on the right there, your father is in the middle.
In the
like
middle,
the
yes, yeah, that's the Maisa.
Right.
And in the other photograph, this is the Dibuk, and my father plays the Mishulach. He is on the right-hand side.
On the far right. Yeah. And just onto the next photo here. Who is on the next slide? Now, who is your father with here in this photo?
On the extreme right is Schneider. I can't remember his first name, and he was the president of the Bund in Brest-Litovsk.
Okay. And once the war broke out, can you explain what happened in Brest-Litovsk?
Right. When the war broke out and the Germans occupied Poland, after a while, as we all know, they made a pact with Russia, and Poland was divided in two. Part of Poland went to the Germans and the other part to the Russians. Well, we happened to be, Brest-Litovsk was very close to the Russian border, and we became part of the occupied Russian part of Poland. And after about 10 days, they started arrests of all the leaders of any Jewish organization. That man on the extreme right, he was arrested, my father was arrested, and one third person was arrested was Tenenbaum. They were the three leaders of the Bund in Brest-Litovsk. They didn't only stop that Bund, they arrested also all the leaders of all the Zionist organizations, because somehow the Jewish communists were pointing out to them who those people were.
Okay. And if we look at the next couple of photos, can you explain what's happened to these photos and why they were cut in half?
That was before they were arrested. My mother went through our photo albums and cut some people who were leaders of the Bund, because they were going around rumors that every leader of every organization will be arrested. So she was just cutting them out completely or cutting them off. I'll never forget when I last time saw my father. That was such a horrible. You know, like when they arrested him, we didn't know where he was, first of all, because he was arrested not from home, but from his work, which he already had. And dinner time came and he wasn't there, and we didn't know where he is. So we thought maybe he's working overtime or something. And then we're sitting and waiting, he's not there. And my mother got hysterical. And we started ringing and running and looking and talking to people. Nobody saw him, they did it so cruel. For 10 days, we didn't know where he was. We were sure that he was somewhere killed by somebody, or just by some hooligans or something. And then my mother, I remember, rang the committee in Warsaw. And then they said that they're starting arresting Bundists. Do you know if maybe they arrested him? So we said, how do we find out? So he said, look, send a parcel of food to the prison on his name. And if he's there, you'll get back a signature. And that's what happened. You know what? When we saw the signature, my mother was the happiest person in the world. We were celebrating. We didn't know that that's the last signature we'll ever see from him. But it was such a relief to know that he's alive. It was so, we were excited, so happy. And then, of course, weeks went by, and they wouldn't even let us see him or anything. And then one man who was sitting with him in the same prison cell came back from, they released him. I don't know why he was sitting there
And he told us that they punish him so terribly that he's beaten up every night. They don't let him sleep. It was terrible what they were doing to those arrested people. And we knew that sometimes they take him for interrogations from one building to the other. So the wives and the children, we used to sit outside in the street, on that street where we knew, between one building and the other, and watching. And sometimes we saw somebody. So the women right away started running to that wife because they knew the people and telling them, come quickly because they took him to the other building. So the women would come back and sit and wait till it was over, and they were bringing them back so they see them. And I went to school at that time. So right from school, I didn't go home. I was always going to that place because I knew that my mother is sitting there. And when I came, she used to go home, prepare something to eat, and I was sitting there. It was just something, it was going on like that for months. And then one day, we saw him coming out. And we were both there. And we could see they brought out somebody, and we thought that I recognized my father. Then I screamed out, Papa! And he turned his head, and I couldn't recognize him. He was only 33 years old. It was an old, broken man who was completely bent. And I thought, is it my father or is that? And my mother was screaming. And we were running towards him. And again, we had a good soldier who was taking him. And he said, is that a father or is that a husband? And we said, yes. So he pretended that he wasn't looking. He said, go and have a cuddle. So we rushed up to him, and he was trying to lift me up, and he lifted me up in his arms, and I was trying to kiss his face, and I was so frightened because I didn't think I was kissing my father. It wasn't his face. He had no teeth left. Somehow they tortured him so much, they must have, broke his face, his teeth. He had no teeth. He could hardly talk. I could only recognize his eyes, and the tears were running, and I was crying, and I was trying to put my arms around him, but I could see that everything was so sore on him that I was afraid to touch him strongly. Oh, such a horrible scene, such a horrible scene. And the soldier said, look, enough is enough, get away, get away. And my father was hanging on to me, and the soldier was pushing me away. And eventually he tore me away from him. And I see my father just going away, just shoveling his feet like that. And my mother running after him. And that was the last time I saw him. And it was just horrible. It was really horrible. I was thinking, was it good that I saw him? I don't know, but at least I saw him. Whenever we used to talk about it, we used to cry, so we tried not to do it too often. But, and why was he there? Because he was a Bundist. That's all, the whole thing was because he was a leader in the Bund. And you know what? When I was in Russia, the people who were, because they had an amnesty, they left out all the prisoners. So whoever was still alive came to their families there where we were in Siberia. So there was a river there, and they had to go through a little bridge. And we knew the dates when they were coming, they would let us know. So every day after school, I used to run to that little river on the bridge, and I was sitting and waiting. And whoever was coming, we were running to the parents, to the wives and the children, so-and-so is coming, so-and-so is coming. But my father never came back. Some of the people came back from our town, from the Zionists, from other just rich people they arrested and all that. But not one Bundist was left alive. Not one of them. They were the first ones to be killed. You know, I was just a child. What do I know? And I was so, you know, we were taught that Stalin is the best person in the world, you know, and all the communists. They were saying, write a letter to them. They will help you. I wrote about 10, 20 letters to Stalin. I wrote to Voroshilov. I wrote to Kalinin. Every leader, you know, I was writing and begging them to let my father come back to me. You know, I'm sure they didn't know what to do with those letters. They burned them, they threw them out, they never gave them to those people because it was so silly. But I was a child. What did I know? I was only 8 years old, 9 years old, and I was writing those letters nearly weekly, begging them to send my baby back because he was a good man and he didn't do anything bad to anybody. Well, it was silly. But that's how it was. I never talked to them. You didn't hear that, did you, before?
No.
Sorry. I seldom talk to them, but this brings it out.
And you and your mother were sent to Siberia and
Yes.
spent the war there.
Yeah.
How were you able to keep these photos, and how do you still have them today through that time?
A few months after my father was arrested, 2 Russian soldiers came in the middle of the night, knocked at our door, and told us that we have to pack because in the morning there'll be a truck coming and we'll be sent off somewhere. He wouldn't tell us, of course, where to. So my mother didn't pack much, but there were 2 lovely young Russian soldiers and they were helping us because they saw 2 young people, my mother and me, completely useless, didn't do a thing. So they started packing for us. They were extremely good people. And then when everything was packed, which all the suitcases and everything, they realized that something was lying on a shelf, a bookshelf, and there were 2 albums. And one of the soldiers just grabbed those 2 albums and threw it in this suitcase. And my mother said, why do you do that? What do I need that? And he said, listen, you need it. That will remind you of the good life you had before the war. Well, if someone would hear what he was saying, he would be arrested too. But that was good luck for us because those beautiful 2 albums were really a treasure.
And so after the war, after Siberia,
we were sent to Siberia for 6 years. Life wasn't easy there, but somehow we survived it. And after the war was finished, they put us again on the cattle trains and took us back, all the Polish citizens, back to Poland. And they took us mainly to 2 places. Szczecin was one, and the second one was Wrocław. That's where most of the people who were brought back from Russia settled. And
once you arrived in Szczecin, how did you become involved with the Bund and SCIF in Szczecin?
As soon as we arrived to Szczecin, we realized that people were already getting organized. First of all, there was the Jewish committee, and every Jewish organization started helping out their people who were brought back from anywhere in Russia. We came without a penny. We came
with nothing really on us. So we went to the Jewish committee and we were dressed from top to toe. The Bund immediately gave us some money for daily spending. We were put into a lovely place to live. We really were beautifully looked after by the Jewish committee and by the Bund.
And was the Bund very active during that time? Like, what were you doing to try and
Well,
reinvigorate?
they were just very busy because they were just trying to help the people, and people were trying to find people, maybe hoping that they'll find somebody in the family from somewhere. There was correspondence going on, but of course hardly anybody had good surprises. There were only bad news around us.
And in terms of Bundes life, what are you doing here on the left?
Well, as you can see, there is two of us in blue shirts and two in white shirts. The white shirts were the communist group, which desperately tried to organize themselves as well and make friends with us. We were not very happy about that, but we were afraid to do anything different, but go to the gatherings when we are invited.
Yeah. And on the left, handing out.
Oh, there was already there was already a Bundish paper, and we were out in the streets selling them.
And just on to the next set of
this is our group of Zukunftisten and a few Skifisten, as you can see, in front of a building, there was the Bundish Lokal, where we there every single day, every evening. We were gathering there for lectures, for just to be together.
And is that your mother in the front row? I think 4 from the left.
I can't see properly. The third from the
Fourth from the left. I think right next to the in the middle.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was Mom.
And
yes.
So she was always very involved as well.
Oh yes, yes, and they already started a Jewish school with collecting all the Jewish children, and there was a kindergarten, and most of the people were trying to start a life in Poland, but a lot of them wanted to emigrate immediately, but it was very difficult. Okay. It was very hard to be in a place where it reminded us of all the horrible things which happened during the war.
And on these next 2 photos, do you remember what you were marching for in these photos, or have an idea?
Well, as you can see on the photo on the right, there are all the ruins of the Szczecin ruins, and we were marching. They must have been either it was the 19th of April or 5th of May. I can't remember exactly which one was which.
Yeah, and I think on the photo on the right, you can see you are right at the front, and on the next photo as well, you're right at the front again.
Yes.
Why was it that you were always put at the front?
Because there was a group, 2 or 3 of us, who lost the fathers, and we lost them because they were arrested as Bundists, and they never came back. Later on, we found out that most of them were shot there. So all the Buddhists, wherever I came and wherever I was, they considered us, they used to call us
the children of the martyrs. So whenever there was something to give us pleasure or to, in the name of our fathers, they did that for us. If there was a march, they put us in the front. If there was a gathering, they always gave us the best places. If there was anything to be given, we were always the first ones.
And what did you have, like a weekly skiff meeting, or
Whatever we were doing, most of us went to Polish schools right away because we wanted to learn a bit of Polish. And on the weekends we were in the Jewish schools, and we were seeing each other nearly every evening. Whenever we finished whatever we were doing, we had to run to the club, to the Jewish place where we were gathering with the Skifisten and the Zukunftisten, because we always wanted to be together.
Yeah. And do you remember when you found out that there was going to be a camp for the first time?
Oh yes, that we got information from the Central Committee in Warsaw that they're organizing a camp in Wrocław, and they invited all the Zukunftisten, not the Skifisten. The Skifisten were a bit frightened to take the Skifisten, but the older ones, the Zukunftisten, to come to that first winter camp in Bielawa, in Kamienkowo, in Kamienkowo. That's a long story to tell, because that was a very, very emotional place to be gathered up with all the remains of the young ones who came together to celebrate life.
So it wasn't like an exciting camp that we would have to.
It was, of course, very exciting to see each other, but it was very somber because we were constantly remembering what we came there for, because we were just talking all the time about who was missing, how we came there, and the times in Poland at that time were all very difficult times. That was the time when they had a Kielce pogrom. The Poles made a pogrom after the war in a place where the Jews were gathering after the war. That was shocking. And it was difficult when we had to go on the train to Kamienkowo. People were saying that we are crazy, we shouldn't be traveling. Because when we were coming back from Russia, the Poles were throwing stones at us on the trains. They weren't very happy to see us. They said, I remember hearing them screaming, we thought we got rid of all the Jews here in Poland, and look at them, they're all coming back. We weren't very welcome after the war.
Yeah. And on the camp, what type of things did you do? What was like an average day on camp?
Well, first of all, let me tell you how it was, the gathering itself. Whatever we were doing, we were coming from all different towns in Poland. And every day or every second day, a bus would arrive full of Skifisten, no, not really Skifisten, but Zukunftisten in buses to join the camp. So whatever we were doing, we dropped everything and everybody ran to that bus. And people were hoping that maybe from that bus would come somebody they knew, maybe a school friend, maybe a neighbor, maybe a relative, maybe something. But very seldom there was somebody who was meeting anybody, because there were so many people coming from different places, but there's so many missing. So we try to be happy that we are survivors.
but we could never forget what happened and why we're there and why we're looking for those, hoping to find somebody, because all of us lost someone.
And who were the other helper that were with you on the camp? Do you remember any names?
Well, if you go closer to the photo, I will tell you a lot of them. First of all, Bonovino was the commandant from Skiff camp. And then there was Lejza Pinskia. There was Henrik Bornstein. There was Železnikov Masha and Železnikov Adremel. Lonke Friedman, or Masha was Friedman by then, she wasn't Železnikov yet. Simcha Burstin, I'm just calling out the names which you know, because those are the people who came to Australia, and quite a few more, but I can't see them properly now on that photo.
And you mentioned Bonovino. What happened with him on camp? Because is it true that he found his brother on the camp?
Well, the brother was in Russia during the war, and he was one of those people who was coming from on one of the buses. He knew that he was coming because he got in touch with him first, but when he came back, everybody almost took him on their shoulders and brought him into the camp, because he was the only one who arrived of all those people we are hoping to see. He was the only one who arrived while we were all in camp. But he was not in very good shape. He wasn't well. He could hardly walk. But later on, he recovered. Especially because there was such emotional, you know, it's very hard even to explain to you and to imagine what it meant to see a bus arriving and us doing something, and we knew a bus is arriving, and every one of those kids and grown-ups were waiting, who is coming in that bus, you know? Maybe there will be a miracle, maybe one of my cousins or someone I didn't know survived and he will be coming. It was so emotional that most of the people, when we were leaving the bus, you know, going back to camp, were crying because they were disappointed. No, I didn't find anybody I knew, you know, I didn't see it. And that was nearly every day. Those buses were coming from different towns of Poland, you know, to gather up before the official opening. It was very emotional. Oh, the Lermans, that was unbelievable. That was an unbelievable thing. See, Lerman with Heitje, him and her, they were school lovers. They loved each other from childhood. She used to tell me always that he used to come in the morning before school to her place, wait outside for her to come out, take the books from her so she would not carry them, and take with the other hand, he would take her hand and they would go to school together. And they were real little, I mean, children who loved each other so much that they would never be apart. And of course, during the war, they were apart. They lost each other. He was in Russia and she finished up with the Germans in the camps, and she went through hell. And of course, after the war, he started looking for her. And imagine, he found her because he was sending out letters and looking everywhere. And he found her in which country was it? Because a group of Jewish children were sent off there after the war, when was the liberation. No, Finland, not Finland. I forgot. I'll find out. He found her on the list of survivors. He nearly went crazy about it. So immediately he got in touch with her and they started writing to each other. And she said, I'm coming back. Don't move. I'm coming back. And then it was Skiff camp, and he told her where he will be when she arrived. So about a whole week. He was waiting every day. He didn't know for sure which day he will arrive. And he was so sad. He used to play the harmonia, you know? How is it called in English?
Accordion.
Accordion. He was playing beautifully the accordion. And he every night, whenever before we went to sleep, he used to sit with that accordion and sing such very sad songs. And we were going to sleep with that in our ears, him sitting and playing the accordion, waiting for her to arrive. And then one day, and of course, when buses were arriving, he was the first ones to arrive. One of the buses, she came. And when he saw her, and she was standing in the door of the bus, they just couldn't talk to each other. They couldn't open their mouth. And we all disappeared. We went away. We left them all to be by themselves. And then we could see she slowly got off the bus, and he put her in his arms. And we all disappeared. And we didn't talk to them for the whole day because they were sitting and talking and talking and talking. It was so beautiful. And suddenly, in the evening, when he took out his accordion, he was playing all these songs with such a completely different tune, you know, everything was so happy. So we all gathered up and we started dancing and singing, you know, it was like a completely different person. It was so beautiful. It was so beautiful. A real love story.
And we're seeing here Appel on camp. Was this the first Appel?
That's the first opening Appel on the Polish soil after the war by the gathering of the Zukunft in Kamienkowo.
And is that you raising the skiff flag?
Well, I got the big honor, as I said before, because I was one of the children of a mother, and I got the big honor of being the first one to lift the flag on the Polish soil. And Bonavino is just standing there opposite me.
And what were you singing?
We were singing the same song which you were singing when you ever on camp, the Morgenröte entgegen. But we couldn't really sing because instead of singing, we were all crying.
And so you say you sang that every Appel, like
every Appel, and every Appel we had to stop in the middle because we couldn't finish because it was too emotional. It was too early. Everybody was so hurt and upset. We tried to be happy. We tried to cheer everybody up, but it was impossible. There was not one person who wasn't thinking of someone who he lost, or some of them lost their whole family, the whole families. They were single survivors. People lost parents, mainly. People lost grandparents and siblings. So as much as we try to be happy, we always finish up with crying.
And today, when we do Appel, we always sing with our arms crossed. Was that not something you did?
No, we never crossed arms. I don't know where you got that. Maybe somebody thought about that for some reason. We always had the hand up.
And do you know, on to the next photo, maybe? This photo on the left,
Yes.
there's people with rifles.
Yes.
Why did you need those?
Because as I said before, there was horrible times. They were attacking Jews in Poland. So we had, as soon as we arrived there, the police was notified. They were looking after us. And they also gave to all the leaders rifles. And we never went to sleep at night without Dijon, you know what a Dijon is.
So today it's just washing dishes, but I'm sure
The,
it's very different.
the Dijon was standing like a patrol.
Mm.
We were always, and those people who were standing watching, they all had rifles. As a matter of fact, I was just talking to Guta Goldberg, who was one of the people of the Zukunftisten who was on that camp. And here I was telling them that I was talking about that camp, and he reminded me that once on a Dijon, he was there with a rifle, and he by mistake touched the rifle because he heard someone coming, but luckily enough, he pressed the thing and it went up instead of killing them at Zukunftist who went out for a walk and forgot the words which we were supposed to say before arriving. But it was just lucky. He was saying to me that was a funny thing. We were all laughing about it, but it wasn't a laughing matter, I tell you.
And so at the time, how old were all of the Helfer?
Well, there was a difference, a big difference as they were, yeah. But they were all, I suppose, early 20s. Early 20s. And some of them were, you know, younger.
Right.
Well, I was 15. But I think I was one of the group of the younger ones.
Sure. And I think on the left, on the right, there's a photo of you leaving the camp and packing
Yes,
up.
that was already when we were packing up and ready to go. There were trucks, I think 1 or 2, to take us back to Wrocław, and from there, with each one of them going to the different towns. Back again, we were taking the train. Now we had, but I mean, I wasn't involved with it. I left it to all the skiff helper, you know, they were skiff helpers from before the war. And they were sort of copying what they were doing before the war. I was only listening and learning, you know, because I was the young one there. And I was only happy to do whatever they asked us to do.
And on the next set of photos, is this a different camp?
Oh, no, this is a group in Szczecin, and this is a little group of younger ones. This is, when I came back from the camp, I organized that little group of young kids, and that was the first skiff children in Szczecin. That little group grew. After a little while, we got more and more kids coming and joining us, but they are the very first ones which we gathered up.
So you had the first big...
And from there, we organized a little camp, a local camp,
right,
near Szczecin.
Mm-hmm. So you had the big winter camp and then the small camp.
That was still winter. That was still
yeah.
winter. But that was a small camp. In each town, they were organizing their own little camps.
Yeah.
When we finished with the main camp in Kamenkovo.
And were you on any other camps before you left Poland?
Oh yes, then I went on this summer camp. Yeah, in the same year, because this was 1947.
Okay, and I think we have some photos from that summer camp here.
Yes, yes.
Again, Appel and the flag.
Yes.
And on this next photo, you can see all of you marching. What was happening here?
I don't know either. It was, what year is it? Is it
the summer camp?
That's the summer camp already. So that must have been already summer camp. I can't remember the date, but I can't remember what it was exactly. But normally we were marching, either it was the 19th of April or 1st of May. It could be maybe the 1st of May. I can't remember the date. I would have to look up the photo. The photo would have on the other side
And
written the date.
so you would march through the town.
Through the town. We were wanting to show that we're not afraid of them, that we are here and we are staying there, and we have just as much right because we are a Polish citizen. But we were afraid, but we were just pretending that we're not afraid.
Right. And how were the numbers of Skifistan on these camps? Did they grow?
Oh yes,
compared to
on
the
this
first?
on the summer camp there was lots and lots of children, especially because we had a skiff camp together with the Zukunft. The Zukunft there weren't many Zukunftisten because mostly the Zukunftisten were the helpers, but the younger ones, there was quite a lot of us, a lot. That was a very big campsite.
Right.
It's a better one and a bigger one.
And where did everyone get the money, or where did the Bund get the money for these camps? Do you know?
Well, look, I wasn't involved in those things. I didn't know much, but as my mother was telling me, most of the money was coming from America. It was mainly from the Arbeiterring, from the Bund organizations, and they were making sure that we have enough for all those activities.
And then in this next photo, what happened here? This is in 47.
Oh, this is after the camp, after the skiff camp. They send all the helpers on a little retreat as a sort of a thank you for all the work we've done. And it was called Dushniki Zdruj. It was like a little place, especially for like a holiday place.
Right. So
With proper rooms, with proper beds, you know, not a campsite.
Yeah. So the first campsites, you were saying in tents?
No,
Or,
it was always, they always found some sort of an empty house, a big houses. Summertime it was easy because they used to hire schools, because school holidays, so they had hired schools, and the women always prepared for us, you know. They organized, you know, they had beds and bedding and everything there, but it was a big house and it was always a big place to play. It was like around the school. But on this place, when we were on a holiday, that was a luxury holiday for us. It was beautiful.
and on the camps, what food were you eating? Did you have cooks come in?
We had women from the town,
Right.
from the, what is it called? Women organization, YAF, from YAF, you know, the Jewish Polish organization. They used to come. They had also visuals. They were coming one after the other, and they were cooking for us, and we were helping, of course, but they were the main balabustas, you know. They were coming and helping us to cook.
Yeah. And after this camp, or this holiday, you left Szczecin shortly after.
I left Szczecin sort of nearly the end of 47. I went to France because my father had a big family in France. Half of them was lost during the war, but some of them were still there, and they immediately made papers for us. So we joined them.
And of the Bundisten and Zukunftisten in Szczecin, how many of them did you keep in touch with after you left, and how many of them also left?
Well, surprisingly enough, a lot of them came to Australia simply because wherever we wanted to go, we always send out petitions. And no country was very happy to get us. So we tried America, we tried Canada, we tried all the Americans, Argentina, whatever, England, no reply. The only replies started coming from Australia. So we were just happy that they took us in.
And then the next set of photos.
That's the farewells for us. The Chechen people, the Chechen Bund was making farewells. Can you see?
Yeah.
Big tables with goodies. The
Right.
skiff made it separately, the Zukunft made it specially, the Bund made it specially. So we had a whole week of celebrations of saying goodbye.
Right. And then you left and went to France.
Yes.
And I think we'll speak about France in a part 2.
I have France, then all different excursions to England, to the Riviera, a lot of things.
Yeah.
But that's just Poland.
Okay, well, thank you for taking us through that.
Thank you. And you have any questions? If you have any more questions, please ask me while I'm talking.
Well, I think we might go through France in part 2, but I guess, did you look back on your skiff and Zukunft experience in Poland was it an enjoyable time for you those years?
Well, for me, it was enjoyable because it was my first experience. Some of the older ones remembered the skiff and the Zukunft from before the war. So for them, it was even harder than for us. For me, it was a novelty, and I was trying to have real fun and enjoy it. While with them, it was like reminiscing what was and what is, and it was very difficult for them. They were remembering their friends which they lost, and everybody they lost, and who is missing at that celebration.
And so were most of the meetings and the camps focused around the Holocaust? Or was it?
Actually, we tried to avoid talking about it. We didn't need to remind anybody because we knew that they were thinking about it anyhow, all the time. Of course, but it was a day like the 19th of April. We always talked about it and remembered it. But it was so raw and it was so fresh in our mind that we were trying to give them hope and something cheerful, something better than remembering all the time and talking about the Holocaust.
Obviously, you're talking about a time when you were very, very young and at Skiff and experiencing it for yourself. And now you have Eeniklach who are at Skiff or Helfering at Skiff. I mean, I'm not going to ask you if you ever thought in your wildest dreams that there would be a Skiff in Melbourne, you would have this sort of legacy moving forward. But how do you feel when you see now as a Buba, when you see Sam and Ruby and I know your cousins are also at Skiff as well, because I've seen them in seminars. How do you feel when you see them up on camp, when you visit them on Visitors' Day, when you see Sam in a Skiff t-shirt? What does that feel like?
Well, I tell you the truth, the only thing I think about is why hasn't my mother and father seen that? They would be so proud, especially my father.
Yeah.
And of course, I'm proud. But it's not important. I just always think of my father and mother, especially my father.